Hi guys, this is Sage Adams again with another Microsoft Access 2013 tutorial. In the last lesson we looked at entering data into your fields, and it was really about the easiest thing ever. In this lesson we're going to get a bit more complicated, although not overly so, and look at working with fields to get them to do what you want them to. More specifically, we'll look at field properties, what they are, and how you use them. This will give us a great deal of flexibility over how our data is formatted and used, and what we can do with it. This knowledge will serve you well no matter what database system you'll be using, now with Microsoft Access, or in the future. This is an important chapter. Once we understand what field properties are, we'll dive in and answer all of the following. How much data do you want each field to contain? What do you want fields to be named? How do you want a field's data to be displayed? What if you want a field to have a default value? How about making fields required? How do you index fields to make them faster to search? Can you align data in your tables to make them look better? How can you make sure data is entered consistently? Can you use logic to ensure correct data entry? But before we get to answering all those questions, let's tackle what field properties are and how you'll use them. Given the questions we just looked at, it should be pretty obvious what they are. They are controls for how the fields are defined and how they work. How they work specifically is more nuanced. They all have a properties pane you can use to work with the properties. They are set in either the general or lookup tabs of the properties pane, which is below the field list in the table design view. The general area is the most common and where you'll make almost all of your changes. I would say about 95 to 99%. The lookup tabs is primarily just for lookup lists. Some properties will have drop-down lists where you can make a selection from predefined variables, while others will allow you to type in information. So let's take a look at some examples here. We can set field sizes pretty easily. Let's look at our comic books database again. You'll notice I've added a date of publication field to the main table, and I've removed the attachments field. Look at the condition field, which is currently set at 255 characters, which is the default for a short text field. We don't need nearly that much space for this field, especially since the largest value here will be about 10 characters. Giving a field more space than it needs takes up valuable database real estate by increasing the file size. So let's reduce this field size to 20. We'll give it a little extra room in case I add another longer item to this field later, although I don't expect to. Alright, let's also change a caption. Right now we have current guide value. We're talking specifically about the Overstreet comic book price guide. It's the most commonly used, but there are others. So let's change that to Overstreet guide value. Now let's change the format of the new date field. Go into Design View, and for the date of publication, change the format from short date to long date, and take a look at what that looks like. I like that better in some instances, but not always. It's good to know what options you have for your own or your client's needs. Okay, let's set a default value now. This will really speed up data entry if you enter the same thing often. Remember, it's better usually to use a drop-down menu from a relationship if you're entering the same thing over and over again. However, you can also add a default value for a related field. Let's do that. Let's say most of our comics are published by Marvel. let's go ahead and change the default value to Marvel for that field. Now, when we create a new record, Marvel will automatically be selected for that field. And if we want to use a different publisher, we'll just have to select it. Let's also make the publisher field required. Select that field, and next to the required property, just change it from no to yes. Now, whenever we create a new record in this table, it will require us to enter a publisher value. It would probably be a good idea to make most, if not all, of the fields in this particular table required. Well, all of them except perhaps for the image cover. But we're not going to do that right now. Next, let's make an index. Indexing will speed up the time it takes for access to search a particular field. Let's say, for example, we want to query our title field on a regular basis, which is very likely. So we'll want that field to be indexed. We just click the field, and in the Properties area, select Yes, Duplicates OK. Duplicates are OK here, because while the field is related, it's duplicated in this table. That's all that means. We can also align a field, and it's one of the easiest things on the planet. Just select the field, let's say Title, and then select Center. It's that easy. Using input masks is a bit more complicated, but not too bad. They're often used with phone numbers, but since we don't have one of those in this table, let's use the date field. Click the field, and in the input mask, click the ... button on the right, choose the short date to make data entry easy, and click Next. Then, choose an input character. I prefer it the default way of just an underline character. Click Next, and then choose with or without the symbols, and then click Next. Finally, click Finish. A few steps, but really not that bad. Okay, one more. All the fields in our main table are protected at the moment, either through data constraints because of the data types, numeric and date, or because of relationships. So we don't really need validation rules on any of these fields. So let's put a validation rule on one of our other tables. We'll do conditions. Let's ensure you can't enter a numeric value, and we'll make only text-based values possible. None of the conditions have numbers associated with them, so this is a safe thing to do. Note that publishers and titles could potentially have numbers in their names, so conditions is the best table to use for this validation rule. So we'll type in an expression that meets these needs. I'll type in is null or not like parentheses star open bracket or left bracket exclamation point lowercase a dash z right bracket star end quotation. Now let's test it out. Yep, that works pretty good. Some validation text would be nicer though. Let's put in don't use numbers, use letters only please. Alright, let's check that out too. Okay, that looks a lot better. As a side note, I recognize expressions are difficult. I don't know a lot of expressions off the top of my head either, so I usually just Google an expression I'm interested in creating and can usually find what I need that way. For this one, I just Googled Microsoft Access expression only letters. We don't really have any need for total record validation on our tables at this time, but the process is similar to field validation. Just make sure to click the Property Sheet icon in the design view of a table to see the overall table property sheet. Use the validation rule to enter your expression there, and the expressions will work essentially the same as in field validation. And that's it for field properties. Next week we'll look at finding and filtering data. Have a great week.